Tonight on JoyNews Prime, Electoral Commission begins piloting of voter registration exercise. Some political parties say they are satisfied with the process.
So as far as I'm concerned, all the health issues are being taken care of.
It's so perfect. I haven't seen anything going wrong. Everything is going on smoothly. So I think everyone should observe this and then practice it along.
We'll bring you some analysis on that. Also, it is official. If you fail to wear your face masks in public, you will be penalized. This follows the backing from Executive Instrument 164.
So government hereby reminds the regional and the district coordinating councils that that are yet to kick in their compliance measures to go full throttle and ensure that there's compliance with the executive instrument that has now been issued to support the mandatory nature of the wearing of.
Also tonight, founder of defunct Capital Bank William Atuasian submits fresh proposals to the state pledging to refund 27.5 million cedis after initial offers was described as totally unacceptable. And in business,
Finance Minister set to present mid-year and supplementary budget review next month.
Later here on business, and daring thieves have robbed the Nima Divisional Police Station of television sets, monitors and other valuables. The details of these and more here on JoyNews Prime, coming to you live from our studios here at Kokomlele in Accra on digital address GA09925539. You're live on your digital television because you're free to air. This bulletin is also live on DSTV, channel 421, Go TV 144. Please stay with us for details. Let's settle for the details now. In our first story, some political parties have expressed satisfaction over the performance of the biometric registration kits expected to be used for the mass registration exercise. The EC today created 2 registration centers at Red Church here in Accra to display the new BVRs to ascertain the effectiveness of the kits. While some political parties who visited the centers observed that the system put in place will help safeguard the lives of applicants in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. But first, my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson filed this report.
We are here at the Red Church where the Electoral Commission essentially is trying to test the performance of the biometric kits that will be used for the mass registration exercise. And since I got here, I've made my own observation, and one thing that I observe is that the Electoral Commission seems to tackle 2 things at a time, where they're looking at the performance of the biometric kits and also the concerns about safety when applicants or electorate would want to register for the voters' ID card. And one of the things that they do is that the moment you enter, there is a security official there where they'll check the temperature with the thermometer gun, and also you'd have to wash your hand. And I see some police personnel also there, because this is more like a registration center that would be replicated during the mass registration. And if you're talking about social distancing, as you can see, the chairs are being spaced, and I see a white box where all the chairs have been positioned in just to ensure that they don't breach the social distancing. And I want to do something, Mamavi, because one of the social distancing protocol is that you have to get about 6 feet social distancing. So just permit me to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, exactly 6 feet. So that is what the Electoral Commission is doing, just to ensure that they are observing the social distancing protocol. When you are done, you move to the registration officer, and I see some of them with nose masks as well, and others also with gloves. They will take your details and ensure that you go through the process smoothly. So this is what is happening here at the Rage Center, and some of the political parties have been present. The NPP was here a while ago. I spoke to the chairman of the campaign manager of the 2020 elections, that is Peter McMenu, and also some Nanabi being the youth organizer of the party. The director of communications for the Electoral Commission, Madame Seviano, is here, and I just want to get a quick information from here. Madam, Yes, so, Madam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Basically, I have made my own observation, but what is the Electoral Commission seeking to achieve for this process?
Yes, you may ask. Once again, we are having a pilot. Now, the essence of a pilot exercise is to make sure that you cross all your T's and you dot your I's, making sure that you are set in case there are problems. You know, you are able to nip them in the bud before the D-Day. We are talking about the 30th of this month, the commencement, which marks the commencement of the registration exercise. Now, so basically the essence of this exercise is to make sure that we are able to identify if there are any problems so we can solve them and run the registration exercise smoothly.
Right, but has there been any challenge so far?
So far, I, for one, haven't been able to identify any serious challenge. What we are saying is that maybe some of the queues there are quite a number of people here. They are patronizing it, and averagely, you see one person going through like 5 minutes or 6 minutes, depending on the speed of the one behind the computer, you know, behind the machine, so that if you are able to fast track the process, you know, for instance, if you are going to the registration center, you need to get all your details right. You may have to fast track that process by, for example, making sure that you have your name written boldly on the sheet of paper, your house number, your address, and that kind of stuff. That can fast track it. But if you get there and you are not too sure about one thing or the other, it can affect. For instance, some people have come here and they spent just a little time at the first point of call, which is the registration officer table. Now, if you are able to give the information faster, you go faster, then you go on and on and on and on. I haven't seen any serious challenge there, thankfully. I haven't seen any serious challenge. It has been smooth so far.
Thank you very much. So that's Madam Sylvia Anode telling us that the process has been smooth so far. So this is the piloting exercise of the Electoral Commission with regards to the registration kit here at Ridge Church MMV.
So that's my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson there. Now we can listen to the chairman of the MPP, the campaign chairman of the MPP, Peter McMahon, and other political parties who are impressed with the pilot process today.
I will look at it from two perspectives. One is the health issues associated with the registration, that is the COVID-19 perspective, and then secondly, the voter registration process itself. With respect to the health issues, the COVID-19 protocols, I am satisfied that as soon as I got here, the first thing I was directed to do was to wash my hands under a Veronica bucket, flowing water with soap. After I finished that, they gave me a paper napkin to clean my hands, and then they sanitized my hand. Then I was made to join a queue, and the queue had been marked with a white paint, to social distance one from each other, also in line with the World Health Organization and Ghana Health Service protocol. So I joined the queue, and ultimately I got to the first table, where Form 1A, which captures your biodata, your name, your mother's name, your residential address, and more importantly, your identity to demonstrate, to show that you are a citizen of Ghana. And I showed or gave them my National Identification Authority card. Then they quoted the number of the card on a row, and this is important, on a row on the Form 1A. Because in the previous Form 1A, there was no row for inputting the number of one's citizenship identification. That is why there was a quarrel with people who used the National Health Insurance when the Supreme Court ordered that they be brought back, because there was no row. So they quoted my number on the row, and then the lady gave the form back to me to join another queue. I joined the other queue. In fact, I spent less than 5 minutes with the lady. Then I joined another queue. Then ultimately I got to the biometric registration kit table where my fingerprint, my thumbprint, my photo were all taken, and then the card was issued from Form 1C. It was cut out of the Form 1C and laminated, and then I thumbprinted the card for their office use, and then laminated for me with the inscription P on it, a big P, showing that it is a provisional card. So finito. I didn't take more than 3 minutes on that table. So as far as I'm concerned, both the health issues are being taken care of.
One of our members had already gone through the process. It took the person about, I think 6 minutes or so.
Everything is going on well. I'm observing the social distancing, the face masking. Everything is going on well.
And would you say that has there been any challenge of seeing yourself, or you think that this whole exercise has been great so far?
It's so perfect. I haven't seen anything going wrong. Everything is going on smoothly. So I think everyone should observe this and then practice it along.
Right. So when you say GUM, what do you say?
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, GMI. GUM, Arise for Development.
Okay, so I'm saying GUM.
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, GMI. Ghanaians, let us arise for development.
Thank you very much. So that's the GUM aspiring member of parliament for Enyasotium constituency.
So those are the remarks of political parties there. We didn't hear from the opposition NDC though, but let's hear from independent election observers. Paula Brampa is with CODEO, that's a coalition of domestic election observers, and he joins us via the phone. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on JoyNews Prime. What will be your observation today? What did you observe today at the process, the piloting registration today?
All right. Good evening, and let me also say a very good evening to our listeners. As you did rightly say, could you actually observe protocols as to conformity to established principles in electoral activities?
Okay.
So whenever we go to either polling, voting center or registration center, we are interested in the processes that is used in registering or voting to see that they conform to established rules and principles. In this particular one, the Electoral Commission had said that he had tried the machines that is going to use for the 30th of this month for the general registration, and therefore we're invited to come and see the demonstration of it. So when we're going, CODEO had in mind about 4 or 5 issues that we're going to observe.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one was to observe in the midst of COVID-19 and the assurances that the Electoral Commission had given us to observe whether they were being implemented at the registration centers. So that was one. And two, to also, so in that, all the issues that has got to do with it, the temperature gun, the washing of hands, social distancing, placement of chairs and other things.
So before you move to point 2, what were your observations on the respect for and the observance as far as social distancing and all the safety protocols are concerned when we're talking of COVID-19?
Well, I remember around 11 o'clock, I sent an initial report to my office and they were laughing. So when I went there, everything was smooth. But I got there before the voting started. There was a lady there at the entrance who was asking people to wash their hands and also use the temperature gun on us before we got seated. But just after about 10, 15 minutes, the lady left the place. So I observed 3 people entering the perimeter without going through the washing of hands. So I drew attention to somebody and said, we should observe some of these things so that when we go to the actual registration, people don't lose guard. And people are placed in certain protocols steps to enforcing it. That's just by the way. Aside that, everybody came there. Initially was wearing the nose mask out. But just we started at 10 o'clock. After about 11, see people dropping.
Mr. Brampa, we are losing you. We are losing you on the line there. If you can just reposition yourself.
Am I okay now?
Yes, there's a better connection, yeah.
All right. So I said after about 1 hour, initially everybody was wearing the nose mask, including the EC staff, people who came there to register and everything. But after about 1 hour, you could see some of the registrants or observers who had come there dropping their nose masks to their chin level.
Okay.
So that was also one thing I observed. But after the placement of the chairs and the social distancing, they were conforming to the approved one.
Okay, so let's move to the second indicator, which I'm sure has to do with the process itself.
The process itself, in fact, before the start, the Director of Elections was trying to explain, and I could see Mr. Griffiths asking questions as to how many they could register a day. So that was also one of the things that we're going to check, because we're going to do it in 6 days per cluster. Okay. And in the last election, we could see some of the registered had more than 600. So if you use 6 days, then we wanted to see how many people could go through the registration per day. So multiply by the 6 days and linking it to the number of people in the polling stations that had registered names to the register more than 600 to see whether the 6 days was enough. So in our calculations, the first person who went through the registration took 18 minutes to finish the whole processes. But we can't base on that because it's a chain. So one person does not finish before another person comes.
Very well.
Then restricted ourselves to the first person who finished, the second one, how many minutes did it take to also follow him? So we realized that it was between 6 and 8 minutes.
And that's quite a lot of time there. But we need to wrap up on this, Mr. Brampa. As we wrap up, just in 30 seconds, would you say the process has been satisfactory? And what would you recommend that when we begin the registration proper, the EC should do? In just a minute, sir.
Well, three issues that I would recommend. One, we have to give strict instructions to people who put in charge in enforcing the protocols of as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Two, we also witnessed at some time in the process, people get crowded around the tables. That one, we have to be very careful about that. And also, we need to have people with speed. We realized that where the delays were coming were the first and the second table. The first table was where they take your details, they ask questions and fill the form for you. And the second table especially was where they capture your data into the system. That's where the delays were. So we need
and that is why you think they need to work on, bring on some more
so that
personnel.
At least we're able to register more people per day as we expect.
Thank you very much, Paula Brampa. He's with CODEO, that's a coalition of domestic election observers, and they observed the process today as the EC began with the pilot registration exercise as well as verification. A Deputy Attorney General, Godfred Iboadame, is urging the Supreme Court to merge the new case filed against the Electoral Commission with the other case due for judgment on June 23. Now, both cases relate to the EC's decision to compile a new voters register. The NDC is asking the Apex Court to direct the Electoral Commission to allow eligible Ghanaians use the existing voters' ID card as proof of citizenship. The party had earlier challenged the EC's decision to compile a new register, but abandoned that cause after the court asked it to clarify what reliefs it wanted to grant. Now, the court has fixed June 23 to deliver its decision. As the EC and the nation waited for this judgment, a new suit was filed against the commission, describing himself in a writ as a native of Breman Kokoso in the Sikuma Odobin Brakwa district of the Central Region. Mark Techi Banson is challenging the decision of the commission to use the Ghana card and the Ghanaian passport as the only identification document. Mr. Dame wants the two cases merged and will push for this come Friday. It's been 3 months since Ghana recorded its first case of COVID-19. Yet, despite months of education, press briefings and discussions, many Ghanaians are yet to appreciate the existence of COVID-19 and the threats. Some residents of Kwabena here in the Greater Accra region say they are yet to believe in the reality of the virus. They are calling on government to release images of the supposed victims if it wants them to keep safe, claiming that it may be true in the West, but not here in the country. They told JoyNews' PSN and Safo they have no fear of the virus.
coronavirus no or one pa na say any because say na yare ne da bia omu yi o TV su say yare ne kwa na ekoso ba amanoni no omu che yare no omu Ajazira omu che say nipa se na wu nipa se na yare da ho ba ye de obi wu a ye hu obi yare no so a ye hu omu bi say me jira asira ma she mask because me ntindi
o train say obi hu obi picture say we nya COVID-19 answer
be say me hu say na Ajazira for no yi obi wu na omu yi eche no omu so omu yi ni sa na hu say ampa yare no ho abrochi de na me hu say yare no o abrochi ba Ghana de
Thomas is a driver right here in Accra. He says, as for him, he's heard that there is coronavirus in the world. He does believe in it, but he doesn't believe that it exists right here in Ghana. As a matter of fact, he says, till he sees images or he sees any person he knows who has COVID-19, he is going about life as usual.
Oh, I will Ghana had the Matinka and Yameshe. I'm not the animal who said, "Bibi Ekoswo." Because when you can't believe, say, see is believing. And I had to say, she in Koso, you who say, Obi, news so na yet, answer. And I had to say, yeah, Akahon it's Robianum.
Head of Administration and Support Services at the Ghanese Municipal Hospital, Reverend Samuel Obeng, is asking Ghanaians to take the virus more seriously as it could be life-saving in effect.
It is so unfortunate that people believe that COVID-19 is a scam. My brother and anybody watching us, it is not a scam. As you can see, you are in East Municipal Hospital, one of the national treatment centers for COVID-19. It is real. It is not a scam. In fact, they are here with us. We are treating them. I want everybody to take it serious. And the only way to curb it or to stop the spread of the infection is to abide by the protocols. The hand washing protocols under running water, the use of sanitizers as often as possible, the social distancing, very important, no hugging, no shaking of hands. In African culture, we always want to hug somebody, want to shake somebody. Please, for the sake of your health for now, let us avoid it. And now let's put on the masks. It is mandatory now that everybody who is leaving home, as you can see in the facility, I am putting on my mask. That is the surest way to curb the spread.
Ghana's COVID-19 cases has moved up by 339, bringing the total case count to 12,929 with 66 deaths. There are 8,395 active cases with 4,468 recoveries. There's concern that low level of compliance to the safety protocols may be part of the reasons we are seeing the increase. Information Minister Kojo Ponkrumah announced at today's briefing that the executive instrument to back the directive for the mandatory wearing of the face mask is ready. This means you will face the law if caught without a face mask.
Over 230 tertiary institutions were programmed to reopen this week and were supported with PPEs and sanitary items by the government of Ghana after intense engagement between the universities and government. Government continues to observe the activities on campuses, even as we engage with other education cohorts on the reopening of other institutions in the senior high school category. As you recall, according to the program, they are expected to be next. We expect to make some more pronouncements to this effect by early next week when the full observation or the full data is in on how this first cohort for final tertiary students has gone. So please expect some pronouncements on the next step of the reopening of schools. But already the feedback is that the schools have put in place commendable measures. The tertiary institutions have put in place commendable measures so far, and we continue to observe the situation on campus. Government also observes that several regional and district coordinating councils are stepping up their activities to ensure that the wearing of masks is enforced across the country. The wearing masks, we are informed by the public health scientists is a key way to prevent the spread of contaminated droplets from an infected person. It is effective if majority of the population comply with it. So government hereby reminds the regional and the district coordinating councils that have or that are yet to kick in their compliance measures to go full throttle and ensure that there's compliance with the executive instrument that has now been issued to support the mandatory nature of the wearing of masks. We also implore citizens that it is our collective responsibility, it is in our collective interest as well to wear the face masks when stepping outside of our homes. The wearing of masks, which is a complement, not a substitute, a complement to the other prevent etiquette, ensures that we protect each other from further community spread. We in particular reiterate our call to operators of public and private institutions, workplace managers, and persons responsible for the gathering of other persons to strictly ensure that physical distancing and the wearing of masks, in addition to the availability of hand washing or hand sanitizing logistics, are available.
So we have a new executive instrument, that's 164, backing that directive by the president. Let me bring you portions of it. So it says that now therefore in exercise of the power conferred on the president under subsection 1 of the section 2 of Imposition of Restrictions Act 2020, this instrument is made this day 14th of June 2020, wearing of face covering. 1. A person shall wear a face mask, face shield, or any other face covering that covers his or her nose and mouth completely when that person is A, in a public space, or B, leaving or returning to his or her place of abode. Duration, so that's the duration on wearing. It says subject to paragraph 5, the mandatory wearing of the face covering under paragraph 1 shall be for a period of no more than 3 months. Geographical areas. This instrument applies to the entire territory of Ghana, and as far as enforcement is concerned, the police may undertake random checks to ensure enforcement and compliance to paragraph 1, and a person who fails to comply with paragraph 1 shall be subject to the sanctions specified under section 6 of the imposition. Let's go on to the phone lines now. We're joined by private legal practitioner Samson Ladia Yenene. Thank you very much for your time here on JoyNews Prime, sir. I'm reading this and it sounds like I don't have an option the minute I step out of my house not to wear a face mask. Is that observation correct?
Correct. This is a law you would call a general provision for general application. So it is a one specific issue law in that it applies to face masks and the compulsory or mandatory wearing of same. So you have to have a face mask, or you have to have what is the law calls a face shield, or another face covering. But the instruction is this: it must cover your nose and your mouth completely. It must cover nose and mouth completely. So it's either you are using a face mask or a face shield or any face covering, but the rule is it must cover completely. And when are you to use it? When you are in a public place, or when you are leaving or returning to your place of abode. So this is a one issue specific law, general and of general application to catch everybody. And as we already know, Parliament by Act 10/12/2020, the Imposition of Restrictions Act, empowered the President from time to time to issue these directives, and these directives that are issued under an EI have the force of law, and they are punished under the Imposition of Restrictions Act. Therefore, if you are found to be violating or not complying with it, you risk suffering a minimum of 12,000 Ghana cedis fine when you are taken to court, or between 12,000 and 60,000 Ghana cedis. So it can be any amount from 12,000, but not less than 12,000 and not more than 60,000. In addition, you could risk a judge, depending on the gravity of your non-compliance or violation, could decide, as the law requires, that aside the monetary sanction, you could pay the fine and go to jail in addition. Or a judge could decide that you only go to jail but don't pay a fine. Or if the fine is given and you are unable to pay, then you go to jail. If you have to go to jail, a judge cannot impose more than 4 years, less than 4 years sentence on you, and a judge cannot impose more than 10 years sentence on you. So between 4 and 10 years, that's what you're looking at to go to jail. But let's all remember, this must only happen in a court of law, not a police station. The law does not empower the enforcers to whip you with canes in the public place or anywhere. The law does not empower them to ask you to do any communal labor. Anything aside what the law instructs is lawlessness on the part of the enforcers.
Samson, thank you very much for that education here on JoyNews Prime. We do appreciate that, and I'm sure that going forward we'll explore this further, because there are other areas. I see people asking questions about what the exemptions are, for instance, but time will not allow us to do this. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's move on to some other stories now, and one person is feared dead after a tree fell on him in Kumasi after heavy rain storm. Let's go live now and speak to my colleague Ohimin Teria. He has all the details. Ohimin, what can you report from Kumasi on this story?
Good evening, Ernest. Indeed, the trunk of a neem tree is sitting in front of the Asantemai Senior High School here in Kumasi fell on 3 vehicles, one of which had a driver sitting at the boot. Unfortunately, 2 drivers managed to escape from the scene, but the driver, identified only as Alaji, in charge of a taxi cab with registration AW7248-14, couldn't escape from the 3, but he was trapped inside until well-wishers came around. Some managed to pull him out of the rumble. By the time that he was pulled, he was already motionless. And I've been checking with my sources at the Swami police station, who told me, indeed, the lifeless body of the deceased have been sent to the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital's morgue for preservation. A casual look at the tree indicates that this particular tree here has marks of cracks. It has marks of cracks on it. And we are told the driver and his colleagues were waiting patiently for drivers for passengers who will be accessing the Kumasi Tamale, Kumasi Wa, and the Kumasi KJG stations here. It's something that they have been doing all the time. But this evening, around 5 p.m., it was an unfortunate day for him, as he was struck by the tree, waiting and sitting patiently at the boot of his Opel Astra taxi. So the accident caused heavy vehicular traffic here, especially those traveling from the Swami roundabout end to the KJTR there was a lot of heavy vehicular traffic here, as a lot of people also came around to catch a glimpse of the accident here, Kojo.
Ohimin, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on this rather worrying development. There, one person feared death after a heavy storm in Kumasi and after a tree fell on him. We're taking a break here on JoyNews Prime. When we return, we'll bring you some more stories. Please stay with us. And you're still here on JoyNews Prime. It's now time for business, and Sandra is on standby, anchoring from home. Hello, Sandra. Well, I think you have to unmute, Sandra. It comes with technology sometimes. You're getting used to this, so I think we're trying to figure that out with Sandra. Once she corrects that from her end, we'll bring you the latest in the world of business, and we'll be telling you more about the issues at the port as well from Sandra Essenam-Apenu. She'll be joining us from home, anchoring from home from business. Later, we'll also be joined by Gary Al Smith, who'll be joining us from the UGMC. We'll tell you why in a minute, and there'll be commentary later as well on radio. Gary will fill us in on all of that. Sandra, if your feed is ready, what do we have in business? Well, let me bring you some other stories. Now, we'll take a break here on JoyNews Prime. When we return, we'll go back to Sandra for business. And let's go back to Sandra. Forgive us, technology sometimes can't mess up. Sandra, can you hear me now?
Technology.
Great, I can hear you now.
We have more from business. My name is Sandra Essenam-Apenu. I'm anchoring from home, as Ernest said earlier. In our first story tonight, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to present the mid-year budget review and supplementary estimate next month. According to the minority leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, the Finance Minister will use the opportunity to explain how government intends to replenish advances it took from the contingency and the stabilization fund due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He also added that the Finance Minister will explain how government intends to pay back the 10 billion cedis it borrowed from the central bank.
Witness the Finance Minister submitting a mid-year review, and of course, given what is happening, I believe necessarily he will come with supplementary estimates. There are two supplementary estimates that the minister will be required to submit. One relates to the budget performance, and if he needs additional funding, he will be required to submit supplementary estimates after the mid-year review. So that's the first. But you recollect that the minister had come to Parliament and indeed requested through the Finance Committee for advances to be made to the ministry from the contingency fund. First of all, we took some amount from the stabilization fund to the contingency fund, and then the minister then made a request through the Finance Committee for advances to be made to the ministry, which was done when Parliament's meeting was suspended. Now, the Constitution provides that in Article 177(2), where an advance is made from the contingency fund, a supplementary estimate shall be presented as soon as possible to Parliament for the purpose of replacing the amount so advanced. So if you take monies from the contingency fund, you're supposed to submit a supplementary estimate to indicate how you intend to replenish that stock. The contingency fund contained nothing, and it's because Parliament was not insistent on this. The previous administration needed to take some amounts when petroleum funds, petroleum revenues dwindled. After we had approved of a budget, they needed to take some amount from the contingency fund. which was done, but it was not replenished. We need now, two wrongs would not make right. So we need now, going forward, to ensure that once Parliament, through the Finance Committee, allows monies or advances to be made from the contingency fund, for the finance ministers to show us how they intend to replenish the stock. It may not be necessarily, the stock replenishment may not necessarily be for a year. That come and show me how you're going to replenish the stock within 1 year. It cannot be done, because if it could be done, they will not take the money from the contingency fund in the first place. What it will mean is to show an indication, maybe over a period, 5-year period, 10-year period, whatever it is, for you to, let us know how you intend to replenish the stock.
Ms. Professor Godfrey Walker says the mid-year budget review gives government the opportunity to fully recalibrate the macroeconomic figures to reflect the reality and impact of COVID-19 on the economy. He spoke to me earlier on Business Live.
We expect that our fiscal deficit would increase from the projected deficit in the 2020 budget. But of course, the statement made in Parliament gives us a fair idea of the elevated fiscal deficit position, because the deficit now has increased from the 18.9 billion in the 2020 budget preliminary to 30.2 billion per the statement the finance minister made. This is expected to increase a bit because of the impact. Even though the lockdown has been lifted, we are not seeing that activities have returned to pre-pandemic level. People are still cautious in approaching in terms of the day-to-day interaction that we see here and there. Then again, it's going to impact our debt stock. That is obvious. But the good news this year is that because the cedi has been relatively stable, the extent to which the depreciation of the cedi adds to our debt stock will be smaller than last year. Because last year, the depreciation of the cedi alone added approximately 15 billion cedis to our debt stock, because the cedi depreciated against the major trading currencies, largely the dollar. Because if you look at the composition of our public debt stock, the external debt, majority of them are denominated in dollars. Then you can talk about pounds, euros, and the rest of them. So that can be a bit minimal. But then, of course, when it comes to the elevated fiscal deficit, then that can go up a bit. And then the financing arrangement from Bank of Ghana. From
that, the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, says the new integrated customs management system deployed at the country's port has so far generated 490 million cedi revenue. This is contrary to claims that the country has lost revenue due to challenges with the new system. There's more in the following report by Ebenezer Sabute.
Window port clearance to the integrated customs management system at the ports has been met with some challenges. Chief amongst them is the inability of freight forwarders and clearing agents to access importer tax identification numbers, resulting in delays. Responding to the criticism that the system is causing revenue loss at the ports, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Ameshada, also revealed that the system has contributed to an increase in revenue in the first 2 weeks of full implementation.
As at end of May, the total revenue for customs, if you include the levies on the petroleum sector, comes to 4716. That's 4,700,000,000. Without the petroleum is 4003. Petroleum is 713. So if I add the 713 to the 4003, it gives you 4716 as the total revenue. If we are at 490. If you double 490, you are talking about you are crossing. You don't reach $1 billion, you are crossing 900, and so that's why I'm confident that things will continue to improve.
Commissioner Richard disclosed that the introduction of the new system is to help improve business operations at the country's ports.
Engagements to try to see if they could work together or one of them would lead. But you may be aware that between the two service providers, they haven't had very healthy relationships. Some cases, they look at themselves as rivals. In other cases, competitors. In other cases, people complementing the efforts of one another. So that is how come it took some time. There was even an initial engagement to try to see if Kupia, Ghana Link could work with them so that they can come up with. But all those engagements didn't materialize. So the government, being the sole user of these facilities, conscious of where they wanted to get to and the services that they want to provide, that so that all service providers, all stakeholders will have satisfaction, real value for money, and therefore do businesses at minimum cost. Then they thought about this one, which had the potential, based on initial visits to Korea, demonstrations, presentations, the potential was there. So when the existing service providers did not give the indication that they will be able to do what the government wanted, the option was to go in for this one.
He added the Customs Division of the GRA will continue to engage stakeholders on the use of the system.
And that will be the end of the first part of business. Over to you, Ernest, in the studio. I see Gary L. Smith standing by for the sports news as well.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And indeed, Gary is on with the latest in sports. But Gary, you're not coming to us from home or from anywhere around here at the office. Where are you and why is that?
I'm at the University of Ghana Medical Center. I am currently recovering from COVID-19.
Okay, so you tested positive for COVID-19. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm feeling great. The care is very, very good here. It's amazing. And earlier, the management of the Multimedia Group agreed to bring out a statement detailing that some of our staff have been affected by the virus, and I am one of the 5. Exactly.
And so this is to inform you, all of you out there, that 5 members of our team are at the business office in Accra where were contact traced and tested positive for COVID-19. Now, the affected team members, who are all asymptomatic, including Gary, have been isolated in line with case management protocols. Officials of the Ghana Health Service are monitoring them, and we can report that they are all hale and hearty and are responding well to treatment. As part of the ensuring that the safety and well-being of the team members are safeguarded, and guests as well, we are minimizing the the invitation of guests into our studios in order to limit the spread of COVID-19. We have ramped up internal contact tracing in liaison with the Ghana Health Service. Together, we have ensured that team members who may have come into contact with any of the 5 are tested and also go into self-isolation. So that's by way of update for you. 5 members here at the Multimedia Group have tested positive for COVID-19, including Gary, who joins us with sports from the University of Ghana Medical Center. Take it away, Gary.
Thank you, Ernest. And today in sports, the Court of Arbitration for Sports has announced that it will rule on the appeal case brought before it by Wilfred Kweku, aka Palmer, against the Ghana Football Association on July the 17th. Now, in a letter to the 2 parties earlier today, CAS said the time limit to communicate the arbitral award, that is the decision to the parties, has been extended until 17th of July 2020. It will be recalled that Palmer appealed the GFA decision to disqualify him from contesting the FA elections last year. And this would mean then that if he wins, probably the current GFA administration may have to yet go for another election again. But that will be something we will allow time to judge. Palmer appealed at CAS to nullify the election. So that is it. In today's other very trending news, not just in Ghana but worldwide, Chelsea have agreed to the signing of Timo Werner from RB Leipzig on a 5-year deal. The 24-year-old forward has agreed personal terms with the Blues and, subject to passing a medical, will join in July after the German season ends. And Werner, who joined Leipzig from Stuttgart in 2016, has scored 32 goals across all competitions so far this season. And he put out an official statement and a video today announcing to everybody that he is a Blue. So that's it for the first part of the sport for now. I'm Gary L. Smith, and I'm coming to you from the University of Ghana Medical Center.
Thank you very much, Gary, for bringing us the latest in the world of sports. And that'll be it for those of you watching on Joy Prime. But just before we go, daring thieves have robbed the Nima Police Divisional Headquarters, and they have been robbed of some goods, including the television set and monitors. The bold thieves reportedly made away with valuable items, like I told you there, and some stationary items as well. Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of the Nima Division, Abraham Akwe, confirms to JoyNews that the suspects broke into the office Thursday dawn and made away with the items.
That's what I can deduce from this. And no, hold on, my friend. Yeah, all the room.
Thieves invaded the premises at dawn. They robbed our items from our typing room.
The news ends. For those of you on Joy Prime, we continue on Joy News after this break. Stay with us. To some other stories now, the founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atuesian, has submitted a fresh proposal to the state pledging to refund 27.5 million cedis. This comes after the Attorney General's office had described the initial offer as totally unacceptable. Mr. Essien and 3 others are facing 26 charges for various roles they played that led to the collapse of the financial institution. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story, plus an update on the Unibank case.
If we did not think that we had a case worth presenting in court, such that the minimum burden of having the accused persons being called upon to answer to the charges, we would not have brought the charge.
Attorney General Gloria Kufu speaking to pressmen in February after she had filed 26 charges against Mr. Essien and 3 others for various roles they played that led to the collapse of Capital Bank. Mr. Essien's lawyers last month informed the court they are engaging the AG based on Section 35 of the Courts Act, which allows for an offer of compensation or restitution in respect of some of the charges brought against accused persons. This means an admission of guilt, and 4 charges are up for negotiation all relating to stealing. The Attorney General's office in response confirmed the negotiations and informed the court they will consider it. Justice Chebafo adjourned the case to June 18 for the 2 parties to report to him. Chief State Attorney Marina Pio-Pari on Thursday informed the court the terms were not favorable to the state. She said they were totally unacceptable. She, however, informed the court the state has since received another proposal and was currently studying it. Lawyer for Mr. Essien, Bafo Jeubonsu Eshia, urged the court to adjourn the case, explaining reaching an agreement will substantially affect the case. Justice Chebafo adjourned proceedings to July 9, saying should the state fail to reach an agreement, the case will proceed. Another case the state is pursuing relates to the collapse of Unibank. The AG's office has filed fresh charges against founder Dr. Kwabena Dufour and 8 others, bringing the charges up from 68 to 71. Director of Public Prosecution Yvonne Atakro-Bobisa informed the court, presided over by Justice Bright Mensah, that the state has also made available its evidence against the accused person and is ready to proceed. The case has been adjourned to July 16 for case management conference.
Now, the Majority Leader, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, has accused the media of misconstruing his comments on MPs and staff of Parliament who have tested positive for COVID-19. The minister last week Friday lamented failure of the affected persons to self-isolate. In a media engagement today, the Swami MP said reports that he had knowledge of the identity of the COVID-19 positive cases in the lawmaking chamber is inaccurate. According to him, he was rather relaying what had been told him about one of such cases showing up in Parliament and not mingling with others after he was directed to stay at home.
I don't know whether it was deliberate. The statement that I made in Parliament last Friday did not in any way suggest that members of Parliament had tested positive. You all heard me. And yet in the evening, it was made to appear as if the portals that carried the story I don't know whether it was deliberate, but you have made it appear as if I was castigating members of parliament. We're all here as a family. Members of parliament, you the journalists, staff of parliament, including the auxiliary staff, national service persons, the research officers. We have officers and men, the police, the fire service people, we're all here as one family, right? And even if I knew who that person is, a journalist, a member of parliament, a staff, a service person, I will not go out there and mention that person's name to the extent that I have not had any conversation with that person. The medical history of any person is private. Not until you have discussed it with that person. You can't go out there and, unveil whatever that perhaps you do know. You will generate stigmatization if you do that. And it's not right. And I'm surprised that the journalists who heard me went out there and misrepresented what I had said.
Over 800,000 final year senior high school students will on Monday return to school to begin the final phase of the academic pursuit. This is in conformity with the President's directive allowing final year students to go back to school to prepare for the West African Senior Secondary Education Certificate. The university started this week, but the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools say they are yet to receive the promise of having personal protective equipment needed for a smooth takeoff of academic work. Also, training for school administrators is yet to start few days to the reopening. Despite all these, President of CHAS, Yakuba Abubakari, says the schools are ready to welcome students.
Together here, I want to confirm that we on the ground are saying that indeed fumigation earlier took place in all the schools, and as we speak, disinfection is also going on in our schools. And in Ashanti region in particular, where I come from, over 80% of the schools have been disinfected, and the exercise is currently ongoing. The few gray areas that I may wish to mention at this point is the receipts of the PPEs that we've been assured. As we speak, Your Excellency, schools haven't received them yet. And looking at the date that we are to reopen, we need to receive them and do some few preparations before the students come. That is seen as a challenge, and we wish that it is looked at closely. Equally so, we were also assured that there was going to be a training for headmasters and key staff of the school to be aware of this COVID-19 and how to handle situations should they arise at our school level. We have informed our people about this meeting that is about to take place, the training, the workshop, but as we speak, that hasn't taken place yet. For now, I want, on behalf of CHAS and APTI, to say that we, as the administrators on the ground and teachers, are in readiness for the reopening of the school.
Education Minister Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh said the decision to reopen schools was based on available data and science.
We do recall that about 2 weeks ago, His Excellency made a national broadcast announcing school reopening dates for tertiary institutions, secondary schools, and junior high schools, especially for final year students. And that was based upon science. That says that we have to know how we can live with the virus. We can't shut schools down indefinitely. Government cannot lock down and close down indefinitely, because at the end of the day, the teachers represent the biggest payroll expenditure. And if Ghana does not move, lock down everything, the teachers are the ones who are going to suffer, because there will be no revenue to pay them.
Now, President Akufo-Addo assured that PPEs will be made available to all schools before Sunday. Now, he also indicated ongoing plans to review the program to stem further spread of coronavirus.
I think that the population that is coming back makes it possible for us, for instance, to reduce class sizes. We're saying that 30 maximum in every class of those who are coming back. And that also, again, allows us to be able to keep the social distancing rules intact. It's not going to be easy because you're going to be operating in different circumstances than you have hitherto. People having to wear the mask. You've heard from the senior minister that by Sunday, the masks and the various materials that have to be distributed will all be in place as of Sunday to make it possible for you on Monday to reopen. Those who are producing the masks, and now happily the masks are being produced in Ghana. We're no longer dependent on imports for our masks. It's all being produced here in Ghana. It's been a deliberate policy of the government to make sure that our domestic producers stand up and be counted. They're doing so. The numbers involved would be something like 2.4 million masks, because the population of people involved in the senior high school reopening, I believe, are approximately 800,000. That is the students, the teachers, the non-teaching staff, and all the other which the senior minister mentioned.
In a related development, government is unhappy with what it describes as low learning outcomes in the country's educational institutions, especially the basic level. Indeed, it has identified 10,000 low-performing schools that need special attention. To fix this, government, in partnership with the World Bank and other bodies, launched a $219 million Ghana Accountability and Learning Outcomes project. It is aimed at developing a comprehensive set of interventions to address constraints in teaching and learning. Launching the program, President Akufo-Addo said education is at the heart of his vision and will work to ensure the provision of quality education for Ghanaians.
That have made rapid progress in the world have made education a central feature of their development. Education is the equalizer of opportunity, and it is the most effective way to change the fortunes of our country and thereby help us join the group of developed nations. Prior to and upon my assumption of office in January 2017, I made no secret of my intention of putting education at the heart of my vision for the growth, development, and transformation of Ghana. That is why, under the dynamic leadership of the Minister for Education, the Honorable Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh, Member of Parliament for Menchia South, we have implemented significant reforms to improve access, quality of education, infrastructure.
And you're watching JoyNews Prime with me, Ernest Mini. Right now, I want to take you to the office of the former President, John Mahama, who is interacting with many Ghanaians over a number of issues, including COVID-19, the EC registration, and the Green Book. Let's join that feed now.
We must also continue to pray for the speedy recovery of our compatriots who are currently undergoing treatment as a result of COVID. It is sad to note the increasing number of our frontline health workers who have tested positive for the virus. Today, disturbing reports are being received of health workers getting exposed, testing positive, and forced to go into self-isolation, quarantine, or treatment. This is happening at a time that isolation and treatment centers are reported to be full, and both health workers and other positive cases are being compelled to self-isolate at home. This is a sad reflection of the Akufo-Addo's administration's chaotic handling of the COVID situation. Lack of adequate protective gear several months after our COVID emergency was declared is a sad testament of the bungling inefficiency that has characterized the handling of this pandemic from the very beginning. A refusal to be guided by science and a parochial desire for political interest has led government to ignore advice from well-meaning Ghanaians, including the Ghana Medical Association, GMA. Any perceived disagreement with government in its decision-making or published statements or information has been met with savage attacks by government and ruling party officials. This was the experience of renowned pathologist Professor Ajiman Akosa, who dared to question the credibility of COVID statistics released by government. It is trite knowledge that you cannot do propaganda with a pandemic. Lining up Council of State members, chiefs, student groups to the seat of government to congratulate the president on his handling of the pandemic will not let the virus go away. The infections and deaths will ultimately expose you. I've been briefed by the NDC COVID technical team about how isolation and treatment centers are filling up, resulting in several patients being asked to go home and self-isolate. Some health professionals are also being redeployed from their original units to beef up management of COVID cases. And this is having an adverse effect on the provision of reliable and quality healthcare service to other patients coming in with other conditions. Admittedly, there's a lot of pressure on health workers and also on our health facilities. We're indeed not in normal times. Do you have a question to ask? Do you have any experiences you want to share? An advice or an idea? Let's get interactive. Use the hashtag John Mahama Live and post or tweet your question, comment, idea, or experience on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. You can also email me at office@johnmahama.org. I appreciate most sincerely the time many of you, my cherished friends on social media, my brothers and sisters from across the country and the world, have spent not only interacting but also sharing your ideas with me on a wide range of issues, including COVID-19, which is threatening our very way of life. And thanks to my latest initiative, Let's Talk, I've also been interacting via Zoom with many of you who sent in messages with a topic you want to discuss with me. And I've enjoyed all the call-ups that I have had so far. Deborah Lai from Ablekuma West contacted me on behalf of her excited mother. Bright Bell, a health worker. Yao Loku is a private school teacher. Adam, with whom I had an interesting conversation about entrepreneurial finance, and a dozen others. The interactions were heartwarming and very informative. For example, Yao Loku, like many of his colleagues teaching in private schools across the country, is not receiving his salary in full, and he decried the inequity associated with the distribution of COVID-19 food relief in his area, the Kaswa area, during the lockdown. In my Zoom conversation with Yao, he said he did not benefit from the food relief because it was distributed on a partisan basis. It is this failure and inability to competently distribute the food relief and the attendant feedback from especially the vulnerable in society that led to the premature and inevitable lifting of the lockdown earlier than it should have been. Of course, many people were eager to resume normal life because of the economic impact of the lockdown and the government's failure to proportionally reach out to households in the affected locations. I wish to emphasize that the present situation we are grappling with could have been avoided if suggestions offered by well-meaning Ghanaians, including myself, were heeded by government. The Akufo-Addo administration refused to listen to calls to include assembly members and traditional leaders in public education about the disease, in distribution of COVID relief items, and in contact tracing and surveillance. The result has been the disorderly and chaotic distribution of food that caused the lifting of the lockdown. Public education has also been abysmal, and understanding of the transmission of the virus is low. Messages in our major local languages are very few or non-existent in many cases. This is reflected in the total absence of physical distancing in our public places, such as our markets and transport terminals. Involvement of traditional rulers in guiding surveillance and contact tracing would have delivered positive outcomes because they know their communities well. The consequence of government's decisions born out of short-term political considerations instead of the science of the pandemic has been the rising number of COVID-19 infections and the resultant deaths we're seeing today. From 2 confirmed cases on March 12, that rose quickly to 8,548 on 1st June. Today, 17 days later, we have 12,590 confirmed cases and 66 deaths. Reports that isolation and treatment centers are full make the situation all the more dire. While government keeps priding itself with success in testing and has attributed the high rate of infection to the increasing number of tests being conducted, many have expressed skepticism about the accuracy of government's COVID statistics and gone as far as accusing the authorities of massaging the figures. It is recommended by international health experts that as countries start to ease restrictions, it is necessary to expand testing in order to understand the trajectory of the virus. Unfortunately, a strange directive has popped up, issued by the Central Regional Director of Medical Services, requesting all districts and facilities in the region to halt mass testing and test only in conditions when a patient comes in with suspected symptoms of the disease. This has been interpreted by many as an attempt by government to restrict testing in order to show a slower rate of infection. We all have a part to play, all of us, towards ensuring that we protect ourselves and our family and our colleagues from infection. But it is the responsibility of government, more than any other, to ensure that our management of the COVID virus is transparent, is people-centered, and is based on the best scientific advice and practice. My brothers and sisters, health is a human right. The outbreak of coronavirus has shown that a strong healthcare system is vital for any country. The provision of modern, well-equipped health facilities with motivated staff will make it easier for you and every Ghanaian to access quality healthcare. The NDC party I lead has demonstrated over and over again that it does not talk, it delivers. We are guided by deeds and action and not talk. In our period in office, at all times during the Fourth Republic, we have delivered state-of-the-art regional hospitals, district hospitals, polyclinics, health centers, and CHIPS compounds. And evidence of our delivery abound all over the country. If given the opportunity again by the grace of God and the will of the Ghanaian people, we will continue our aggressive rollout of social infrastructure, making sure that every region has a modern regional hospital and each district has a modern hospital facility, depending on the demographic and population of its catchment area. I'll ensure that all our citizens have easy access to quality and efficient healthcare anywhere in our country. In my Let's Talk conversation with Bright Bell, and you can watch that on my Facebook page or on John Mahama TV on YouTube, he brought up the issue of the Onuador mobile vans that my administration introduced in 2015 and which currently have been left abandoned by the President Akufo-Addo administration. These were vans deployed to provide medical outreach services, including dental care, eye and ophthalmic care, mammography, and general care in underserved and hard-to-reach areas of the country. As was noted by Bright, the vans have been left at the vagaries of the weather at the Institute of Biomedical Engineering compound at Kolebu. We would rehabilitate and expand the fleet of mobile clinics and make them available in all our 16 regions so that we can take healthcare to the doorsteps of all our people, even in the remotest parts of our country. We will build a new Onipa hospital ship and deploy it to provide medical services to the inaccessible riverine and fishing communities on the inland Volta waterways. Ladies and gentlemen, my attitude during this pandemic has been to support Ghanaians, including health workers, with whatever I could mobilize, and also to assist government with ideas and possible solutions born out of the technical advice offered by our team of experts and my own experience serving in government. This has been my motivation all through. That has motivated me, our party executives, parliamentarians and parliamentary aspirants, and the NDC COVID-19 team to move around communities and educate the people, provide essential items to our health workers, and also distribute relief food items to Ghanaians. We've also offered many useful suggestions for consideration by government. As the easing up of restrictions continue, it is the duty of government to protect health workers, students, lecturers, teachers, and the public at large. I commend all our health workers, doctors, nurses, field and laboratory assistants, support staff, including cleaners and orderlies, who are all risking their lives to save Ghanaians from this pandemic. I invite you to take a moment to think about the doctors, nurses, and others whose samples are taken after exposure to patients who have tested positive for COVID-19. Think about what they go through together with their families while they wait, in some instances, for more than a week before they receive the results of their test. Just think about the anxiety alone. I believe we can serve our gallant health workers better than we're doing currently. They did not sign their death warrants when they swore their respective professional oaths to serve humanity. We need to inject efficiency in what we do. Government must take steps to curb the long waiting times, which in itself has contributed to the community spread of the virus, including spread at workplaces and among health workers. We continue to hear reports of non-payment of promised allowances and incentives to health workers. It is difficult to understand the delay in such payments, considering that this was adequately budgeted for and provision was made in the money that was drawn down from the stabilization fund with the approval of Parliament. And so it's not like the money is not available. The money was drawn from the stabilization fund approved by Parliament, and it's available for these payments to be made. We must motivate our health workers by paying them a dignifying and commensurate compensation for risking their lives so that you and I can live. I'm aware that adequate supply of PPEs to frontline workers remains a major challenge. And the question is, how does government expect them to work fearlessly if the protective gear, including face shields and other vital equipment, continue to be scarce commodities? There are reports of health professionals having to buy such protective gear out of their own pockets, their own income. And so how can a doctor...
And so that's the former President John Dramani Mahama, who is also flag bearer of the opposition NDC, speaking on a number of issues. But over there, we had him speak specifically about health and asking for more protective equipment for the frontline health workers, as well as teachers and students who have started school already. You're watching JoyNews Prime with me, Ernest Mini. We're taking a break. When we return, Sandra will join us with some more business news. And it's now time for some more business news. Sandra is on standby from home with the very latest. Hello, Sandra. Take it away.
Hello, Ernest. Welcome back to the second part of business. And as usual, I'm anchoring from home. And our first story in the second part, the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, is rejecting assertions it has drifted from its main focus after attaining a universal banking status. ADB was initially set up to play a lead role in financing agriculture in the country. However, some have questioned its new status, arguing it is not in the best interest of the agri sector. But Managing Director of the bank, Dr. John Kofi, says this is needed to rather help improve lending to the agri sector.
ADB was established with focus on agriculture. And it was among a group of banks that were supposed to be developmental in nature. I can remember Bank for Housing and Construction, which was supposed to be for the housing sector. There was also, and then NIB, National Investment Bank, that was for industry. There was also once Cooperative Bank. So you could see that that was the drive to establish financial institutions that are developmental. Now, time has elapsed, and with the change in policy drive or economic policies, it became obvious that ADB has to go back to its core mandate, that is agriculture, and even go further to create value chain agriculture, which we call agribusiness. Hitherto, when you say agriculture, people know that you have a cutlass, you have a hoe, you go and then you clear land, but that has changed. Now we talk about agribusiness. It's a whole value chain, starting from primary agriculture to storage to processing to marketing and even haulage.
Tonight, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, GEPA, has enrolled 20 young adults in a Youth in Agriculture program aimed at achieving the $25 billion target in the export of some 6 cash crops under the National Export Development Strategy by 2029. Speaking at the launch, CEO of GEPA, Dr. Ikua Asabia-Asare, explained participants will understudy selected nuclear farmers for 6 months, after which they can begin commercial farming.
The orientation exercise is a strategic move by the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, GEPA, to shore up export margins in 9 years. Chief Executive Officer of GEPA, Dr. Ikua Asabia-Asare, explained participants will be provided land banks and needed support once they complete the under-training program.
The Youth in Export program is being implemented by Ghana Export Promotion Authority in collaboration with the Youth Employment Agency, and seeks to attract Ghanaian youth into exports. Today, we are launching the first in the series, which is Youth in Farming and Export of Agricultural Products. We believe this is a timely intervention, as the agriculture sector provides the youth with great employment opportunities and a sustainable livelihood, while offering them the platform to contribute to the supply base of Ghana's agricultural produce to increase export earnings and ultimately enhance economic growth.
While business engaged some participants who find the initiative as a lasting solution to their being unemployed.
I've been in the house for the past 4 years in search of jobs from one area to the other. But here comes the opportunity from Youth in Export program. And I think once I've been enrolled on this program, I'm going to learn a lot about pineapple through our orientation and internship with our nuclear farmers.
I'm Abigail Ansa, and for me,
I proposed the pineapple project because I made a trip with my brother one day to somewhere in Sawam. Yeah, he lives there. We went there and he showed me someone's farm, pineapple farm. I was just so amazed. And even though I have the passion of going into farming, I think that scene just drove up a certain passion in me, and I told myself I want to really do this. We've been there several times on a number of occasions trying to get the land and all that, but we saw this advert and I just applied, and I'm glad that I've gone through, because for me it's a big one for me.
It's a good thing. That's how come my mom was able to finance education and all that. So I believe it's about time the youth we take farming as a business. So I just had the opportunity, and then I'm glad to GIPA and then YE for helping me go through this. I am hopeful and I'm looking forward to learning more from our nuclear farmers.
A total of 20 out of 67 applicants were selected for the orientation program. This kickstarts an aggressive step by GEPA to meet the $25 billion export strategy under the National Export Development Strategy.
Away from that, Brent crude traded for $41.43 a barrel after gaining some 0.72 cents. You can also buy gold for $2,270 an ounce. We have more details in the Community News Update. You that there's PM Express tonight, the business edition, and the conversation will be on financing the agri sector. We'll be engaging the managing director of ADB Bank. You can also log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. I've been doing this from home. My name is Sandra Essenam. Do stay home, stay safe.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for bringing us business from home, and do stay safe. And you're watching JoyNews Prime with me and Asmini. We're taking a break. When we return, we'll bring you some more news and your views on JoyNews Interactive. It's now time for some more sports, and Gary joins us from the UGMC where he's receiving treatment. Hello, Gary.
Hello.
And you seem to be getting a heavy dose of goodwill messages, especially on social media. Hopefully that should drive away COVID soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, what I've come to understand in the past couple of days is that, first of all, support is incredibly important. I mean, and I'll let you in on a little secret. The guys I am with here are from all walks of life. I mean, I could mention some CEOs I'm with, and you would not believe they are here.
Wow.
We've got, so the whole spectrum, like people like me who are asymptomatic and walking around as if there's nothing wrong with us, all the way to people who are on ventilators, you know, and then there are those, there are about 2 men who have been on ventilators for about 20 days and are now recovering. And then those who are in between, just a little bit sick, not too sick. And we have heavily pregnant women here who don't have any support at home. And then we have nursing mothers here who are here with, there's a lady here with a baby who is about 2 or 3 months old, you know, and she has to be here while she has COVID and so on. But look, support is incredibly important. And if you know somebody with COVID-19, this is not the time to distance yourself. Reach out, because it can get lonely at this time.
And whilst we wish you well, I must say that what you're doing is also doing a lot for the campaign against stigmatization. And I guess the message is going down well with people now.
Yeah, I'm incredibly thrilled that I got the support of the management of the Multimedia Group to do this. I mean, it was a hectic decision to take, and I had to inform my family, and I'd like to publicly thank my wife for accepting that we do this. If she didn't agree to do this, I wouldn't do this.
Oh, we thank her.
Yeah.
Take it away, Gary. What more do you have in store?
Thank my wife for allowing us to do this and understanding why this is important as well.
All right. What more do we have in sports, Gary?
Well, Kwesi Appiah wants his money. And as you know, he's been owed for a while since he was sacked. He's been owed $185,000. He's been, if you like, campaigning. His last interview was with the BBC World Service, and that is probably why the Ministry of Youth and Sport have paid 2 months' salary to the Black Stars coach because of, everything that has been going on with him. So Kwesi Appiah has been asking for his money, and we do know that right now that has been sorted out to the tune of 2 months. So that is what we are looking at the moment. $1,000 has been paid, and $115,000 is outstanding. In our second story relating to Ghana football, and former Vice President George Afriyie has excused himself from the position of Chief Executive Officer for Asante Kotoko. Now, he has insisted that he has recently got a position of a job that will not allow him to take on any further role with Asante Kotoko. Those who have been following the news know that George Afriyie has been highly tipped to be the successor to George Amoako, and he insists that the Asante Kotoko executive position is one that every football administrator will wish to occupy, taking into consideration the status of the club. George Afriyie says that while he respects the portfolio that is Asante Kotoko CEO, at the moment he wishes the club and Otumfuo and everybody well as they look to go forward. So that's about it for the sports, and I'm Gary Al Smith. My brief from the doctors is not to work too much, so this will be about the only work I'll be doing. I'll be resting here. And just to show you, this is my hospital bed. Let me give you a look. Yeah, that's my bed. One man, one bed. So from here, I'm going to have some food, and then I'm going to sleep, but I'm fine, I'm doing well, and COVID-19 is real. That's the sport for now. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Responding to treatment, Gary. Take care, and definitely we'll hear some more from you. And that'll be it for our bulletin. But a lot of you have been responding to this story we brought to you about 5 people here at the Multimedia Group testing positive for COVID-19. We'll get to share some of your comments with you pretty shortly on our Facebook page, especially where some of you have been commenting. And we did this just essentially for you to know that it is important, if you can, to disclose your status so you can protect those around you, but also to help in the fight against stigma. People like Gary, who are well known, once they jump into the fray to educate people, then we can deal with this a lot more better. That'll be it for JoyNews Prime. Many thanks for your company. You can find more stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com. And just a quick one on the comments that you've been sending in. Hayford says that God will grant Multimedia the needed mercies to overcome speedy recovery to the affected staff. And Akatil also says, I'm wishing their hardworking staff speedy recovery, most especially Gary Smith, who was brave enough to speak on air with MFR Pau, that was on Radio on Joy FM. God see them through in this difficult time. And just one final one. This is a very good move. Thank you guys for announcing they shall soon recover and campaign against stigma. This is what the health minister couldn't do. Hashtag Multimedia must stop COVID-19. All right, thank you very much for your messages. My name is Ernest Menu. Good night.